On behalf of TD Educational and Charitable Trust and all the members present here, it's my great pleasure to welcome you one more session. We have been conducting webinar for the last 2 years. We have almost touched upon nearly 40 webinars, and all these webinars we were trying to connect to the teachers, support them and mentor them. Today we have taken a very unique topic, that is Cbse sample question papers, which you all are quite aware of it. We have here a panel of eminent educators who discuss on these sample question papers to give you some insights and how you can prepare the students for the second term examination. There has been a lot of uncertainty, and Cbse also had taken its own time in releasing the sample question paper. Now that, with God's blessing, the pandemic is almost coming to a close, that's what people predict. In that case, we will be having a full-fledged examination, and this question paper, as you all are aware, is based on subject and subject wise, and it would be a written examination, unlike the multiple choice questions that we had in the first term. So we have speakers from Rajasthan, we have speakers from UP, Aligarh, we have speakers from Delhi, and we have also a speaker from Bangalore. So I request our host, Kaur, to introduce the speakers and start the webinar. We'll come back at the end for a panel discussion to take questions from the participants, and I would also come back during that panel discussion. For now, the floor is for the speakers.
So Ms. Priyanka Singh was a PGT physics in the Sagar School, Rajasthan, Alwar, and ma'am carries more than 8 years of experience and has conducted several workshops on experiential learning, integration of arts, and has also been designing a lot of content, has also been a panelist in the local screening board in APS. So today we have Ms. Priyanka Singh sharing about the question papers, the sample question papers for grade 10 and 12. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you so much, Khushbu ma'am, and thank you, sir, once again for inviting me here and giving me the platform to share my insights and my research work on the latest patterns of Cbse. So one more thing, I will definitely update about myself, as I was working with the Sagar School in Alwar, international school it is, and it's a very beautiful school, and a lot of potential teachers are there. But this last year, in fact, I would say, because now it's 2022, so I have left the school, and now I am working with a new institution. But yes, like you said, ma'am, I'm still an educator and I will always be an educator, and I really like to research in whatever upcoming things are. So anyways, going forward with this, first I'll share my screen and show you all a brief about how exactly the paper pattern is designed for the examinations which are likely to happen in March, term 2 examinations. So this is class 10th science. So how section wise the paper is divided, let us see that first. So we have physics for 12 marks, chemistry mentioned for 10 marks, and biology for 18 marks, as per the sample paper we have released by Cbse recently. So we have total number of questions 15 and the maximum marks 40, as it was already mentioned in the beginning of the session. Now we have the following chapters to be coming in the examination: in physics, electricity and magnetic effects of electric current. In chemistry, we have the chapters carbon and its compounds and periodic classification of elements. In biology, we have how do organisms reproduce, heredity and evolution, and third chapter, our environment. Then these two chapters further are divided into three categories, section A, B, and C. So you can see that how the 2-mark question or the 3-mark question, how many number of questions are there. So we have 1 2-mark question over here, we have 2 questions of 3 marks, and then we have 4-mark question over here. Now, if we see the mark distribution over here, it can always vary in the question paper. We can't be, if you see the previous pattern of the question papers, what mark distribution, like it will always be 2-mark, 3-mark, and 4-mark, but we can't be certain about that exactly from this chapter 2-mark question will come, and from that chapter 3-mark question will come, because these two chapters, they comprise one unit. So here I wouldn't say that we shall completely trust on the sample papers, that from electricity 1 2-mark question will come, or from magnetism 1 3-mark question will come. That can change, but this is how the questions, the number of questions will come for certain. Then in chemistry, we have carbon and its compounds, and we have periodic classification of elements, and you can see we have 2 questions in 2-mark section and then 2 questions in 3-mark section, but we do not have any 4-mark question over here, which is mostly the case study based, some cases given and you solve questions on that. Now, biology comprises the maximum marks for science paper. As you can see, there are 3 chapters. So we have under 2-mark question section, total 4 questions. We have under 3-mark question section, total 2 questions, and under 4-mark, so 1 question. So you can see that if we are going to have case study based questions, so probably it might come from physics section or biology section. Chemistry already is for 10 marks, so it is highly unlikely for us to get case study based question from chemistry. But otherwise, these 2 chapters in itself, they are big and huge. So though some syllabus, some portion is already cut off, but still whether the marks are less or not does not matter. It is more comprehensive when we teach it. So this is how the mark distribution is given for science. Moving forward, I hope my screen is visible once again.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. Just 1 second, ma'am. Probably there is some issue while I'm sharing my screen. Yes.
No, yes. While ma'am is
So
sharing the screen, yes, ma'am, we can see the screen.
yes. So now this is for grade 12 physics. And we all know that the units which are coming are electromagnetic waves, optics, and then we have dual nature of atoms and nuclei. Then we have semiconductors and electronic devices. The mark distribution, maximum marks for the entire optics section, that would be like 17 marks. You have ray optics and wave optics also in this. Then you have 11 marks for dual nature of atoms, for dual nature of radiation, and then atoms and nuclei. So then we have semiconductors. Earlier we used to have communication devices, but as we know that 2 years back that chapter was totally cut off from the syllabus. So we only have semiconductors, and that too the transistor section would not be coming. That was also last year, it was eliminated from the syllabus when the pandemic happened. So we have semiconductors only till where we study the application of diodes, LED and solar cells and all of that. And so while we are preparing the students for a according to what syllabus we have got, we know that the best chapter to prepare on is semiconductors and electronic devices, because this is the shortest chapter now and has got the maximum marks if we see the volume of the chapter. Plus, it is very less numerical based and more theory based chapter now, because the transistor section is totally gone. So this is the best chapter to prepare. 7 marks, like sure and short from this chapter. The mark distribution now is like this. So you have from optics, we have section B and 3 mark questions, 4 questions. Okay. And 5 mark question, section C, there's 1. Similarly, if we talk about this 11 mark distribution, we have from for dual nature, 2 questions of 3 marks, 1 question of 2 mark, atoms, the nuclei, 1 question of 3 marks. And then we have semiconductors. So 2 questions of 2 mark, 1 questions of 3 marks. So this is how the total number of questions for 2 mark is 3 and total marks for 2 marks is 6. So this is how the mark distribution is given. But once again, the chart can only provide us the most close data to how exactly a chapter is going to get divided into 2 mark, into 3 mark or 5 mark. But when it comes to a unit, any question can be shifted. For example, say we have this here, it is written that there's one question from atoms of 2 marks and then 1 question from nuclei of 3 marks, but it can always shift because atoms and nuclei, they're considered together as one unit. So it might, if comes the real paper, it might get shifted. So we can't be sure on that. Now, second is the paper analysis. Now, earlier when we look back 2 years back, so how the paper was, it was knowledge based, but the conceptual questions were also there in some equal proportion. Then we saw the paper last year. So these papers were turning into more MCQ based question papers. Now for this session, CBSE decided to have 2 terms, term 1, wherein all the MCQs will be put together, and then term 2 subjective, where the most subjective questions would come. But if you see class 10th science paper and if you see class 12th physics paper, there is a vast difference between the type of, if you see the type of questions which has come in class 10th science paper and class 12th physics paper. 12th physics paper is more theoretical, which means if you feed the students with more of the derivations, with direct formulae, they are going to score good. So the 12th students who are immediately going to pass out and join their college, they should feel less scared while solving the papers. There, the practice, I would say, is not so much required. We already have February with us, and the syllabus also is reduced a lot. But when we talk about class 10th, if you see the sample paper, the conceptual questions, their volume is more. Even each and every question is turned, and the same if you have seen term 1 science paper, there also the same thing was there. Term 1 science paper, mostly all of the questions were conceptual questions. So the direct knowledge based questions are not there. Comprehension and conceptual questions, their volume is more in class 10th. In class 12th, knowledge based questions are more. So I'll show the paper, I'll show the question paper, and let us have a very quick analysis of this paper. So this is class 12th theory paper, term 2, sample paper, 2 hours paper, 35 marks. Okay, so now you can see that we have section A, and in total we have 3 questions. We have section B, and you can see section B comprises question number 4 to question number 11. And the last is case study based question, which is question number 12 over here. So this is the only question. If you see, you'll find some MCQs. Otherwise, the entire paper is subjective. So only the case study based question is bit, you can say, MCQ based. Now, if I talk about the type of questions which has come in the paper, if I read this first question, in a pure semiconductor crystal of silicon, if antimony is added, then what type of extrinsic semiconductor is obtained? So basically the child will directly write either it is N-type or P-type semiconductor. So this identification becomes so easy because the child only has to realize that antimony belongs to which group. Then it says, draw the energy band diagram of this extrinsic semiconductor. So now the child already has learned that how the energy band diagram is drawn for N-type semiconductor or P-type semiconductor. So you see, the child is not asked to put up a lot of brain. It's very direct question. Okay, now we come to the second question. Consider two different hydrogen atoms. The electron in each atom is in an excited state. Is it possible for the electrons to have different energies but the same orbital angular momentum according to the Bohr model, and justify your answer? Now, once again, you see it says that the hydrogen electron may be in different shell. Maybe there is one electron in n equals to 1 and there's another electron in n equals to 2. Now it says whether the orbital angular momentum, it talks about the orbital angular momentum, would be same or not. Now the child only has to realize this, that when we talk about the Bohr's second postulate, see, so what we need to feed over here to the students, beta, just remember these three postulates. Now, if the child knows about the second postulate, wherein he learns about the angular momentum, okay, he learns about the angular momentum, and if he knows that whether the angular momentum is quantized or not, whether it depends on the value of n or not. So if he knows that it is quantized, fine enough. If he doesn't know, then he wouldn't be able to answer it right. The entire idea is, what is child learning at the background? Only the postulate. So once again, it's a very direct question asked. And the second part of this question is even simpler. Explain how does photoelectric current, kinetic energy of photoelectrons emitted in a photocell vary with the frequency of, so very direct question. Like this is, you're just feeding the theory. Okay. And then name the device which converts the change in intensity of illumination to change in electric current flowing through it. So once again, if I talk about semiconductor devices, and so the child just needs to learn what is the use of LED, what is the use of photodiode, what is the use of solar cell. So I have read this entire question paper and I don't think I even found one single question wherein the child had to kind of relate from one concept to the other concept to the third concept. It's very, very direct question paper. Here again, if you see, it's derive an expression. Like I said, if we feed our students to practice the derivation, lot of derivations once or twice, okay, and there are not many because now the syllabus is half, it's reduced to half, okay. So we feed in the students to practice the derivations, and we feed in that you learn the definitions, you learn the theories, like what is photoelectric effect theory, the postulates directly they learn, they can, and this paper, it would be even not for 2 hours. If an average student would sit and solve this paper, probably he might finish this paper in 1 hour or 1.5 hours. So this is my judgment on this question paper. Even if you see some of the numericals which are asked here, so you see this numerical on telescope. Sorry. A small telescope has an objective lens of focal length 140 centimeter and an eyepiece of focal length 5 centimeter. Find the magnifying power. So once again, the focal length is given, find the magnifying power. What the child needs to know? The direct formula. What is the formula for focal length? The normal adjustment. So he just would find out the ratio of focal length of objective to eyepiece, and the answer is done. Earlier, if you see the previous question paper, if it would come on magnification of microscope or telescope, the questions would have, it would be asked that how to calculate the length of the tube when the object is formed at this distance in front of eyepiece or something like that. Some extra data or info would be given, and at least the child would take 3 to 4 minutes to solve one question. But now he needs to find out one ratio, and that's it. He has two given values. Just he should remember the formula and he will solve it and he'll get the answer. Then talking about question number 9, light of wavelength 2000 angstroms on a metal surface of work function 4.2 electron volt. So what is again? So just one line formula of photoelectric effect. The data is given. So you just put the data in the formula and you get the answer. So this is what is my judgment on this question paper, the subjective paper. It's the subjective sample paper which is given. And so I would say that speaking from an average child's perspective, this paper is easy. And I guess if we all have seen term one paper also. So I find the strategy over here is, since it is already pandemic and the students have not been doing very well in classes, because these throughout the year they have studied in online classes. Somewhere because the year before this, the results were not so good for physics. Somewhere the physics section for class 12, it's not so heavy for the students. The question pattern is easy and knowledge based, and just the practice of derivations, the definitions and the formulae, if they do, even a student who's not scoring very well in the class can do very well in the paper, I suppose. So this is my judgment in class 12 physics paper. Now when I talk about class 10th science paper, comparatively to the aptitude of the students, this paper has a level. It has a level. It's not like very, very difficult also, but yes, students would need to study well to get good scores in class 10th. So was term 1 exam. It was very conceptual as compared to class 12th physics paper. So you will find that direct questions are not asked. Very few times the direct questions are asked. Identification based questions are there. For example, if you see the second question, so this is a periodic table and there are certain elements named W, Y, and Z. Now the child will have to, you see this, between the two elements W and Z. W is here and Z is here, which will have a bigger atomic radius, and why. So now in this, the child will have to use multiple concepts to realize the atomic size. So how would he be realizing the atomic size? One, he will have to understand that what exactly happens to the atomic radius when we are moving from left to the right, how exactly the atomic radius gets affected when we are moving from top to bottom. Okay, so here multiple concepts are merged together to answer one question. If you see this first question, the table shows the electronic structures of 4 elements. And these are the electronic structures. Identify which element will form covalent bonds with carbon. Carbon reacts with an element in the above table to form several compounds. So give suitable reason. So the entire idea over here is, the entire point over here, even the chapter carbon and its compounds cut short, but still from the remaining section, you can see conceptual questions would come wherein child will have to realize how one concept can be merged with the other concept, and identification problems would come. The elements or things are labeled as X, Y, Z or P, Q, R, S, and then the child will have to identify that it's not directly mentioned like it's sodium or it's carbon or something like that. The name of the element is not directly mentioned, because usually when we teach in class, many a times we give examples that this is metal and it has one valency and so it forms ionic bond, and this is how it forms, the covalent bond. But here even the names are not directly mentioned, so the child cannot directly recall from the names. He has to exactly relate to what is the basic or fundamental concept over there.
Ma'am, I'm extremely sorry to intervene here. Keeping in mind the time constraints, we plan to give 10 minutes to each of the speakers. If you don't mind, could we come back to this during the panel discussion?
Sure, ma'am. Actually, I think I'm done with my part also, because the idea of briefing about Cbse sample papers, how exactly the pattern is coming or would be changing, I think I've covered that. So I'm sorry that I've taken more time, and thank you for reminding me. I think we can proceed with next speakers.
Not at all. Thank you, ma'am. And I believe it was
Thank
very
you.
insightful. Yes, sir. It was really insightful, as I was saying, and we definitely understood the difference between the kinds of patterns that we were following earlier and the kind of questions that we will be getting. However, I would like to now call upon Ms. Ritika Bhandari, who is the HOD of Chemistry in GHPS Delhi, and ma'am has over 22 years of experience. She's always worked towards enhancing the students' creativity and foster a child-centered curriculum. And ma'am has mentored a lot of students for various Olympiads, exhibitions, science symposiums, and also has her own podcast. So Ms. Ritika would be talking about chemistry today. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank
I
you.
have
Thank
I have a few words. Mrs. Ritika Bandari has been with us for quite a long time, and she is a very eminent CBSE resource person. Uh, I think she is heading for a Guinness Book of Records in terms of the number of webinars that she is conducting across the country and abroad. It's a great pleasure to have you, Mrs. Ritika Bandari, and it's so nice of you so willingly accept our invitation. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much for all the compliments. I'm always a learner and I try to be a learner always. And I really enjoy sharing whatever I have because I think sharing is caring. So whatever I have, I really want to share with you. So already Priyanka ma'am has told elaborate things about the type of paper and all. I can see all the participants very, sitting very quietly. So I would just like the participants to speak out what is their view about the sample paper. I'll be talking, Priyanka ma'am has already talked. I mean, if you people can share, because you all are educationists and you are already watching these sample paper analysis and everything. So anything from your side which you people want to share? No one? Okay. So, right. Priyanka ma'am has already done a good analysis. So I'm moving on to the second thing, which is very important, which actually CBSE is looking into, a curriculum which is competency based. So as Priyanka ma'am was analyzing, I was looking at her words that if I'm comparing class 12th with class 10th, there was a difference, right? We expect class 10th to be easier, but it was opposite way, right? So what could be the reason? The reason is because of the new kind of curriculum which has actually started. I hope my screen is visible to all of you. Or shall I?
Yes,
Yes,
ma'am.
ma'am.
However, if you could make it full screen, ma'am, I think that would be
Just a minute, ma'am. This is fine, ma'am?
perfect. Thank you, ma'am.
Right. So there is a shift from knowledge to application. That's the most important thing. Because now we just can't imagine our children to, just mug up and vomit it out in the examination. What we want them is to comprehend the concepts, comprehend the principles. It could be any subject. It's general. For science, yes, a lot of interpretation of charts and graphs is there. So you have seen class 10th paper also. You have seen class 12th paper also. They will either give you a chart or a graph or something to comprehend. So this is one thing we have to prepare our children when we are preparing for their examination. Because see, what we had till term 1 was a MCQ based pattern. Children were not in habit of writing. This we have to keep in mind, and suddenly within a month span, because in December they were over with their first term and in January we started with the new thing, right? So what we want our participants, our students basically to write, because this is going to be a subjective paper. So the keywords are not going to help, the understanding is not going to help unless and until they are able to write what they perceive. So that written portion interpretation is very, very important. Then making inference from given data, again, the kind of question ma'am was discussing in carbon compounds and periodic classification. So some inferences have to be made. So whenever as teachers we are preparing questions, we have to keep in mind that the practice questions we are giving or the pre-board questions we are giving to our students, we are not just copying from the sample papers from here and there. In spite, I would suggest start preparing your own questions, because that is going to help you out. Authentic assessments, what we say, right? We need to solve problems. I mean, they are given, some scenarios are given or something is given, they have to solve problems. They have to analyze phenomena. They have to apply principle, and they have to discriminate between facts and opinion. Now, this part is there where we are talking about the case studies. Either I have physics or chemistry or biology, either it is class 10th or it is class 12th. So this is again very, very important. So this ma'am has already discussed about the science one, but one thing I want to add on in this, that chemistry we just have for 10 marks. That's 25%. And the major chunk is for biology, that's 18 marks. And 12 marks is for physics. So if I compare it to the first term, chemistry was maximum. This time chemistry is minimum, but the kind of questions are not very easy. So yes, we have 3 sections. Ma'am has already discussed how many questions are there. But one thing I want to bring into your notice, and that is about the internal choices. So in section A, we have 3 choices. Section B, we have only 2 choices. And in section C, only in one subpart, we have a choice. So this is one thing we have to keep in mind when we are talking about the paper, because how many choices again they are getting, and are they able to do those questions or not, the kind of questions they have been given in choices also. So this is one thing very, very important to be kept in mind. Now, whether it is physics, whether it is chemistry or biology, yes, the questions again based on some scenarios, some situations, even the case study, the kind of case study has been given is not direct. And as I told you people, that the question paper for class 10th science, or if I talk about chemistry 12th also, is more of application based. We are moving from lots to hots, low order thinking skills to high order thinking skills. There is a lot of variation, because if I'm comparing previous 4 or 5 years, there were direct questions. If you look into class 10th paper, hardly any direct question is there, unless and until a child has best knowledge to apply. Knowledge to apply, to create, to evaluate. Only then he or she can score well. Otherwise, it would be very difficult. So the preparation has to be through authentic assessments. I mean, that's for the teachers. They have to create their own items. The kind of CBE curriculum which is moving on. So this thing I really want to point at this point. Now, talking about grade 12 chemistry, we have very few chapters now, because half of the syllabus is already assessed in the first term. So we have physical chemistry around 13 marks. We have inorganic chemistry around 9 marks and organic chemistry around 13 marks. So if I talk about the section-wise marks also, so what we can see is that we have questions in section A. We have got 3 questions, out of which we have 2 questions from aldehydes, ketones, and carboxylic acids. Again, a very, very important part of organic chemistry. But then again, if the child is not very much aware of the previous 2 chapters which were assessed in the first, then they will not be able to do these. So you just can't segregate organic into 2 parts. So that link has to be maintained. Means we are not having any question from section A, but yes, it can change. Organic chemistry may remain for 13 marks, but the pattern can change. It's not that if the sample paper says this, the question paper will also have the same marking thing. That won't happen. It may change, it may vary for chapters, because there are unit-wise marks and there are no chapter-wise marks. This we have to keep in mind. Then in section B, where we have 3 markers, we have 8 questions, and if I talk about internal choices, in section A, we just have 1, and section B, we have 4. That means 50% choice is there in section B. And section C, we have a 5-marker question, which is again a case study. And the choice is only in one subpart, that is for 2 marks. So children have to be prepared accordingly. So if I talk about the numerical portions from electro and chemical kinetics, only one numerical is there. So no need of too many numericals. But again, if I talk about chemistry class 12th, lot of reasoning questions, either it is from amines, either it is from transition elements or from other chapters. Reasoning questions. So a child must be practicing reasoning questions. That is very, very important. Again, a question of surface chemistry is there, which is based on diagrams. So again, whatever I talked to you previously, they have to prepare questions based on diagrams, based on scenarios, based on graph. There is a question on graph from D and F block elements. So we have to prepare questions. We have to create our authentic assessment items. Actually, we can create a valid and reliable items only. If we are able to create, because whatever the kind of assessment pattern is changing, we really need to prepare our own questions. And if sir is willing, so I can take a section where I can teach how to create authentic assessments for science or chemistry in some other day. So, but yes, this is very, very important, because unless and until we are creating, unless and until we are clear what my children are going to do, then we are not able to assess. So that's one thing I wanted to share. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Ritika ma'am, for bringing out the difference between the grade 10 and grade 12 chemistry paper. And yes, we do understand that it might have less marks, but definitely it has twisted questions, analyzing questions. Thank you for sharing that with us, ma'am. I would now like to invite Ms. Swati Roy, who is biology teacher, and ma'am has been in the education field for quite a lot of time and has also guided her students in a lot of Olympiad mentoring, and 10 years of teaching experience. Ma'am has explored each and every side of biology. Without any further ado, I would now like to hand over the portal to Ms. Swati. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Very good evening to respected Tangadurai sir and all the members of teaching fraternity present here. So today I have got this opportunity to just share my views on the weightage and marks bifurcation of biology as released by the sample papers by CBSE for term 2 examination of grade 10. So before I start on, I'll just would like to ask if my screen is visible, ma'am.
As of now, no, ma'am. Yes.
Okay.
Yes, now your screen is visible.
Thank you. So as we all know that now there has been a shift in the way the examination is being conducted by CBSE. Earlier we saw that the way of the questioning or the examination was a mixture of both subjective and objective. While this year, what we got to see mostly from CBSE is that they have shifted into two-term way of questioning, where in first term they have included fully objective paper, and the second term is of more of the subjective paper. So as all discussed by Ritika ma'am and by Priyanka ma'am, that when we analyze the question paper of grade 10 as compared to physics and biology, we can very well see that the maximum weightage is given to biology. That is, in the entire question paper, around 18 marks is contributed by biology. So obviously, if we have to bring in the best in science, the preparation of the students in biology must be up to the mark. So before I go on to the blueprint, I would first emphasize on the chapters of biology which is included for term 2. So there are 3 chapters included for term 2 for biology, and the first is how do organisms reproduce. I'll simultaneously go on with the weightage of marks as per each chapter. So the first chapter is how do organisms reproduce, and out of 18 marks, this chapter carries around 4 marks of weightage. When we go on to the next chapter, that is heredity and evolution. So this time the chapter is actually very huge, but CBSE has excluded the evolution part from this chapter. So only the heredity part of the chapter is going to be assessed. So though this is a very small portion of the chapter, yet it carries the maximum weightage if we consider it to be the overall question paper. And coming on to the last chapter, that is our environment. So this chapter carries a weightage of around 5 marks. Now let us go on and see the blueprint, and let us analyze of how the mark wise each of the chapter the mark distribution is. So as ma'am has already introduced, in from the chapter how do organisms reproduce, out of the 4 marks we have 2 questions which will carry 2 marks each. And as the sample paper released by CBSE, there is no internal choice given to this question. These 2 questions, there is no internal choice. When we come to the next chapter, that is heredity and evolution, as I already said, that there is maximum weightage in this chapter. And if we see the bifurcation of mark, there is a 2-marker question from this chapter, there is a 3-marker question, and there is a 4-marker question as well. So again, when we go to see the options, there are 2 options or 2 choices, internal choices being given from this chapter itself. One internal choice is given for a 2-marker question, and the other internal choice is given for a 4-marker question. So here, this chapter, we can have the students to maximum emphasize on, because if we review or analyze the previous sample papers, we always find that the maximum weightage was from how do organisms reproduce. But this year there is a shift in the pattern of asking, and we find that the maximum weightage is from heredity and evolution. So this is the chapter which we have to focus more on when we are preparing the students for the term 2 examination. At the same time, when we come to the third chapter, this chapter carries a weightage of around 5 marks. In that, there will be a question or 2-marker, which is again an internal choice, and there will be a 3-marker question. So overall, in the science paper, if we see, then we see that there are around 7 questions from biology, and the total marks contributed by biology is around 18. Now, when we are preparing the students to assess the paper, or we are preparing them to for the second term, we should highlight some of the very important topics which has to be covered or which they have to emphasize to do better in the second term. So when we come to how do organisms reproduce, the topics like, when we analyze the question paper, we find that the topics like DNA copying is very important, and majority of the questions is being asked from this topic. Secondly, the modes of asexual reproduction, as this part is a part of the practical syllabus also, so we can expect some of the diagrammatic questions from this part, and also from the fertilization in plant. Coming to the male and female reproductive system and the reproductive health, both are equally important, but many a times analyzing the question paper, it has been found that more emphasis is always given to female reproductive system. Okay, now coming on to the second part, which carries the maximum weightage. So if we can pay the maximum attention to this chapter, I hope all the students will be able to score good. So if we talk about this chapter, there is more of the question asked in terms of variation. And if we analyze the current sample paper released by CBSE, we find that the maximum percentage of question was asked from Mendel's contribution in heredity. That is more type of analysis based question based on monohybrid and dihybrid cross. Apart from this, sex determination and blood grouping are also equally important topics to be covered in this chapter. Coming on to the third chapter, that is our environment. From this chapter, maximum of the questions which we find repeatedly being asked in the sample question paper is from food chain, food web, the energy flow in the ecosystem, and also from the 10% law. There are also some of the questions being repeatedly asked on the human intervention in the environment, wherein mostly the depletion of ozone layer and managing the garbage, that aspect of the chapter is also being repeatedly being questioned in the question paper. So overall, if I have to analyze the 10th grade biology paper, I will just tell that if the students have more emphasis on heredity and evolution, obviously they are able to do better in their examination. And as we are seeing in this term, the students have become more anxious because they are going to attempt a completely subjective paper as they are attending the classes online. And after a long interval, they are going to attempt a subjective paper. So we as mentors have to take the responsibility to train them accordingly. We, as ma'am already said, Ritika ma'am, that there is a huge transformation in the pattern of questioning, which we can easily see in the question paper. So when we are preparing them during our regular classes, we also have to incorporate such questions so that we can see that they also have this gradual shift from the rote learning to the conceptual learning. And I'm very sure if once they have the conceptual learning in them, any aspect of the question being asked, they'll be very well prepared for that. Now, coming on to the writing aspect, when they are expressing themselves in form of answers, then we have to ensure them, or we have to keep reminding them that highlighting the keywords is also equally important. And when we come to biology, as we know that this is a diagram based portion of science, so the equal importance should be given in proper way of the diagrammatic representation and proper labeling of the diagrams also. I hope with all these small way of guidelines, we'll be able to guide our students better and we will be able to bring in the best out of them. With this, I would like to end my presentation. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you so much, Swati ma'am, for
Thank you.
highlighting the key points of biology question paper, the sample paper in such a beautiful manner. I'm sorry, I just got muted. Thank you so much, Swati ma'am, for putting up the biology key pointers in such a simple yet so beautiful manner. I'm sure all our speakers have clearly understood that yes, biology is a very, very important part this time in science. And I'm sure they are guided in the right direction. Once again, thanks a lot. And moving on to our
Thank you so much, ma'am.
next subject, which is mathematics. I would request Mr. Mohammed Saad to please come on board. And if Sir could also turn on his camera, it would be really helpful. And for our speakers, I would like to inform you that Mr. Mohammed Saad is mathematics and physics educator in the Blossom Schools, Aligarh, which is in UP, with over 12 years of experience, out of which Sir has uh, experience of 8 years in the teaching field. Sir is also a YouTuber and a digital content creator. I'm sure all of us are going to learn a lot from this session. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Swati ma'am. Actually, unfortunately, my webcam is not working, so it's I don't know why. So sorry for that.
No issues, sir.
Otherwise, I love to open my camera. So first of all, I would like to thank Tangadurai sir for inviting for this webinar, and I would like to extend my wishes to all the audiences. So just in time, I just want to share my screen first. Ma'am, please let me know if my screen visible.
Yes, sir, your screen is visible.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. So most of the points are already covered. The basic point, the baselines are already covered. by all the speakers. All I need to just go through the structure of the math paper and what we can expect this time from CBSE, because the pattern is drastically changed. So, just a second. Okay. So let's see what I have for you. First, what points I'm just going to, because taking the point into consideration, we don't have much time. So first, I will just show you the 10th question paper pattern quickly. Then I will show you the weightage topic wise, how the weightage is divided, the topic wise. Then I will show you the math term to syllabus breakup. The next topic that I'm going to discuss is chapter wise weightage in sample papers. And the last and most important point, I think what I experienced as a student when I given the board exams, and as an educator mm, and as a teacher, you can say. So these points I will just going to show it in my presentation. So first of all, I'm going to show term to mathematics class 10 question paper pattern. As we all know that class 10 and class 12 math question paper will be of 2 hours and it will be of 40 marks. Okay. The next thing you have to make sure that it contains 14 questions, and these 14 questions are divided into 3 sections: section A, section B, and section C. Okay, so section A is of 2 marks questions only. Okay, section B is of 3 marks questions, and section C is of 4 mark questions. So section A contains total 6 questions. Okay, section B contains 4 questions, and section C contains 4 questions. So if you add 6 plus 4 plus 4, so it will get sum to 14 questions. So this is the breaking of the question paper. Now section A contains 2 internal choices, that out of 6 questions, 2 questions will be there which contains the internal choices, and section B, out of 4 questions, only 1 question will be there which will contain the internal choice. Means that you will have one such question in which you have to do only one. Okay, the odd thing you can say. And same in the section C, again out of 4 questions, there will be 1 question which will contain the internal choice. So this is the how the CBSE has designed the sample paper this time for in the term 2. Okay, and the last and not the least, a very important thing, that the section C contains only case-based study questions. So you will be getting 4 questions, case-based study questions. Okay. So now moving on quickly to the weightage topic wise. So students, please, educators, please have a look carefully about the weightage. That's how CBSE had break these. These are the broad categories of the topics: mensuration, trigonometry, stats and probability, geometry, and algebra. So the highest weightage out of this is given to algebra, which is of 10 marks. So 10 marks questions will come from this portion, 9 from geometry, 8 from stats and probability, then 7 marks question for trigonometry, and 6 marks question from mensuration. So this is the breakup of the broad categories in the topic wise, you can say. Okay. So next thing I would like to cover that math term to syllabus breakup, that I have already shown. Algebra is of 10 marks, geometry 9, stats 8, trigonometry 7, and mensuration 6. So in algebra, we are having 2 chapters under this header, that the first chapter is the quadratic equation and second chapter is the arithmetic progression. So quadratic equation and arithmetic progressions comprise of the algebra. In geometry, we are again having 2 chapters, circles and construction. In stats, because probability was in term 1, so in this time we are having only stats under this header. And the most important for me is the trigonometry, because this is a very short chapter. It contains only one exercise concentrated in NCERT, and it is carrying a good weightage. Okay, so and it is a very interesting chapter also and very scoring. And the last thing is the mensuration. So mensuration is sort of a numerical, so a bit of calculative end. So the mensuration is given the weightage of 6 marks. So 6 marks question will be asked from this side. Okay, so now I will show you the chapter wise weightage in sample papers. So the sample paper which is released by CBSE. So how CBSE has categorized how the weightage is there. So let me show you graphically, so it would be more so you can visualize rather than throwing the numbers in front of you. So for the construction, we have 3 marks. Okay, a bit of the chunk is there for the 3 marks. So there will be one question basically from construction. A quadratic equation, 4 marks from quadratic portion they have asked in the sample paper they have given. In the arithmetic progression, so it is this weightage is 6 marks, and 6 plus 4 is 10, because these two chapters comprises of the algebra part. Next we have a circle. From circle they have asked a question of 6 marks, surface and volume 6 marks, some application of trigonometry 7 marks, and stats 8 marks. Okay, so the majority of the portion is coming from this chapter, statistics. And the good thing is that they have reduced the portion also. The last topic, which is the cumulative frequency graph, has been omitted. Okay, and in arithmetic progression, they have also removed the portion which asks for the practical applications of arithmetic progression. Those type of numericals are omitted. Okay, only the direct question will come from here, from this part. And in construction, and this is a good area to concentrate, because CBSE has removed the portion of the how to construct a two similar triangles with the help of a construction method. So this is a graphical form. I'm just going to show you quickly with the help of a number how the breakup is there. So for the algebra portion, as I have told you, algebra will come out 10 marks, and these 2 or 3 marks are the for the sample paper, how CBSE have given. For quadratic equation, 2 marks question, there are 2 marks question, two marks question from quadratic equation, and 1 2 marks question from AP, and 1 4 mark question. This 1 4 mark question is under the header of the case study. Okay, this is a case study question. In geometry, circles and construction we are having. So this is the breakup given in the sample paper released by CBSE. You can go through the paper. I'm not just going forward. Then trigonometry. So this is a very important region that a student has to score, because the trigonometry is something that a student can visualize also. Okay, and the surface area, again 6 marks, 1 2 mark question and 1 4 mark question, and the last is the stats. Okay, so this is the basic structuring. This is the basic insight of the CBSE sample paper. Now the next topic which I would like to emphasize is the insight on how student can boost the score, because this is on my personal experience also. I'm just I made these slides, so just I'm going through it so that I can share the knowledge. As Swati ma'am has said that this time we have to support the students because they are not that mentally stable, because the pandemic is just about to over, and from 1.5 year they are doing giving the exam in the online mode. So we need to support them, and we need to have with them that how they can do well. So now the first point I will show is that a student must know the syllabus inside out, that what portion CBSE has removed, and which portion has how much weightage it is weightage there. And moreover, they have to plan and prioritize the things better. They have to prioritize which chapter has to. First, they have to figure out that what are my strong points, and with that they will go further. Okay, and CBSE also reduced the math syllabus by 30%. So that's the big plus for them. Okay, and the chapter wise time management student has to concentrate. The next thing that student has to do, they cannot neglect the NCERT textbook, because many students, they have joined coaching and all, so they are just doing Olympiad question and sort of different types of question. But they have to keep in mind that the NCERT book can't be neglected, because the CBSE paper is NCERT based. So if you see the sample papers, a lot of questions are there which are directly asked from the NCERT book also. So they have to be very well conversant with the NCERT books, and entire paper will be NCERT based, as I already said. So student, first they can do what I used to do when I in 10th, that I used to solve each and every problem from NCERT. So it won't take much time, because NCERT don't have much vast database of questions, so they can do that easily. The third point which I'm going to notice is they can refer to additional study material after they complete the NCERT. So they definitely have to do, because if they want to ace the CBSE 10 maths exam, So they must refer some external books also, like for example, common books in the market are R.D. Sharma and R.S. Agrawal. There are a lot of books in the market. So these are the just two good examples that I have given you. And moreover, they will have to do some questions. Can have a sample question papers, and they must solve the sample questions. Okay, it will give the insight from for the CBSE papers also. The next point which I want to emphasize, that we must tell students that they must solve the sample papers. Okay, the sample papers which are released by the CBSE, first they will solve that paper. Okay, and they have to practice and figure, and they have to be very apt in answering. Okay, so from that, it's our responsibility as an educator. We must guide them with all these points. The next, they have to solve the previous year's papers as well, so that they can get the insights from how the CBSE is giving the papers. Okay, so this will also definitely give the clarity about their strengths and weaknesses. The next point, the most important point, the students can do, what they will do, they make a single notebook and they do entire thing on it. Okay, and when the exams come, so they will just go around here and there, where are the formulas and where are the concepts written. So they must have separate copies for the formulas and theory. So ask the students to make separate copies for writing down the formulas and theories, and they can do it chapter wise. Okay, so designated copies for solving math problems, especially because a lot of formulas will be there at the end of the year, so they got confused. And devote entirely one copy for formula and theorems and for concepts. Okay, so this is true for physics also. Okay, where you have a lot of formulas are there, so you can make them. Okay, and they have to jot everything down on it, so they cannot leave anything. And the last, which is useful, I think some audio is coming from. Okay. So actually, these things will be useful for the last minute revision when they have an exam and all. So they can we can share these things with the students as well. The next the next topic, the next point I can say is they don't skip the steps in mathematics. For example, in mathematics, if you solve any question, so we solve each and every question in steps. Okay, so please ask students not to solve any question and don't skip the steps. Okay, for example, let me show you one. Just a second. Okay, let me show you one thing. Like this question, for example, this is a question from AP, I hope. So if you can see, I have written each and every step clearly. For example, look at this step. I have taken the LCM, so I have just mentioned each and every step and don't skip any step. So when you solve any question in front of the student, so make the habit that you write the entire step. So it will help them, because what I have seen in, that students follow us many a times. Okay, so if we go and do the direct questions directly, so it won't give a correct impression. So we need to take care that each and step has to be followed, because CBSE gave the marks according to the steps. Let me go back again. So next point is the board exam. The board exam allots marks for the step 2, that we all know that for in maths each and every. And the best thing in the step marking is, if the answer is wrong, the student can get the marks for the steps also. Okay, for example, in a 3-mark question, I am doing entire thing correct, and in the last I multiply 9 into 10, I written as 80. So I will definitely get 2.5 marks, because the examiner can know that you know the concept, only in the last you got it wrong. Okay, so the next point is start with easy problem. So this is a strategy. It is from my insight. I am not saying that is a hard and fast rule. So student can start their paper with the easy question. So it will give them confidence, okay, and it will definitely save the time. And this strategies apply for every subject also, like physics, maths, for science, okay. Devote time for graphs and figures, as ma'am has already told that we have to be very careful while drawing the graph. So I just show you one picture from a notebook of my student, that if you draw a very neat and labeled diagram, so it will give a definitely a very good impression, okay, and it will help you also. So drawing of the graph and figures in biology, physics, or any other subject, it will give a very good impression that you know the concepts inside out. And the last point is focus on neatness. So whenever you do any question in mathematics, if you can see, so if I got this type of notebook, I become very happy because I don't have to just, I can easily each and every alphabet, every number is separated and it is clearly written. So we must focus on the neatness. So it, so make sure that your answer sheet is clean, okay? And in paper, please avoid overwriting or striking. So they are habit of student, they are overwriting and scribbling thing out. So just avoid these things, okay? And the sheet of the rough work also, in which you are doing the rough work, this has to be clean. Why? Because in solving, a lot of numerical portion are there. So if you solve the problem, so at the end there are chances it may got wrong because of the hot hodgepodge, okay. So these are my insight that I have uh, shared with you, and thank you, that's it.
Thank you so much, Saad sir. I'm sure your insights will be helpful for our teachers and the all the educators who are present here to pass on to their students as well. And thank you for sharing the sample paper, the questions that may be asked. Um, Now we do have a panel discussion. Before that, I believe sir is here.
Yeah, I'm just waiting for the panel discussion. May I have everybody on the board? And before that, by the time people come on to the panel, I think Swati Roy has very rightly pointed out that drawing skills, writing skills, the pattern of question paper switching over from MCQ to subject-based questions is itself a little challenge for the students because they never had this practice of writing. They never had that extensive practice of writing the way they used to do about before the pandemic. Uh, so as a result, the speed at which they write could have retarded, could have slowed down. That's one challenge, I think, irrespective of the subject. And as Swati had rightly said, and the diagrams makes a lot of difference. It's a skill based. I just still remember in my days, we used to draw the diagram of the Asia, Europe, the diagram of India, and it has to be perfectly bordered. So that is a skill that is required. Similarly, biology has a lot of diagrams. Physics, as Saad had said, a lot of neatness is required, and all these also contributes to the success of the students' performance. It is, and I think this part of it is something that we have to be very careful, and most importantly, the time management, 2 hours paper with just so many subject-based questions, not having had enough practice of writing. This is where we need to practice, make the students practice. And now as Mrs. Ritika had rightly said, our participants are very silent. Nobody has put any challenging questions. We have a very eminent experts. Uh, we would like to have questions from the participants. And I do understand that we did not have all social science, maths and all because we wanted to focus on science. Maybe in the next webinar, we can think of other subjects as well. I request the teachers to come forward. I think all of you are eminent teachers, and we look forward to getting some good ideas from you as well. Can anyone break the ice, please?
Ma'am, good evening. I'm Selva Priya from CDSDAV Public School. I'm handling math. I have a doubt in math. I would like to talk with sir.
Please go ahead.
Sir, in quadratic equation, in 10th standard quadratic equation, there is no application sums in syllabus. It is deleted, but in sample paper, we have a question on age sum. So do we have application sums in quadratic equations?
They might come because what CBSE has done, as Ritika ma'am has told, that CBSE is shifting from knowledge based to the practical based questions. So they might give those type of questions because in NCRT, because there are some questions which are there on practical aspects also. So
Okay.
I hope so these types of
Oh.
questions may come, ma'am.
Oh, okay, sir. Thank you.
And I'm so overwhelmed by the readiness in accepting the invitation. That's the most important. And all of you have a great insight in your own perspective and approach. And it's a wonderful journey this evening. And I'm sure all the participants have takeaways. And we look forward to meeting you again. And thank you so much, all of you.